We're not going to get into pattern drafting, leg drafting, vamp drafting, simply because we've already done that work for you. We're sending them to you. These patterns that we're sending you work. I make boots on these patterns every day. This is a typical set of leg patterns. This being the front pattern with the scallop cut in here. This is the back pattern. You can see a definite cut here. This angle of cut down the bottom down here will raise in the center according to the type of heel height that you're using. The higher the heel you make, the higher heel Western boot you make, the more you're going to have to cut this V in here, the taller up here you're going to go. The bottom measurement on these patterns, this 6 7/8 on the bottom, is half the circumference of your heel measurement. The back pattern of your leg patterns is larger than the front pattern on the heel measurement down here. They're both the same measurement on top. This is a size 8, and the top measurement is 7 1/4 on the front pattern, 7 1/4 on the back. Your back leg pattern flares out at the bottom. Your front leg pattern tapers in at the bottom. That's why it is 6 1/8 here, and it is 6 3/4 here. This basically gives you a straight line on your side seam after you've lasted the boots. The size 8 in the middle is obvious. This is a size 8 pair of boot tops. The H 12 7/8 here is the heel measurement. This size set of patterns has a heel measurement of 12 7/8. You've got that for every size you've got in there. When you take your measurement sheet and you look at it and say it has a size 13 heel measurement, you're going to pay particular attention to these heel measurements. We've put the different measurements on here so that if you end up with a size 12 7/8 heel measurement, rather than using, say, this particular chart here, if you wanted to get a little less, you could take and mix up your heel patterns to come up with any type of heel measurement combination you wanted to. You can take a size 8 and a size 9, say a size 9 back and a size 8 front, to come up with a different heel measurement. You don't have to use a size 8 set of patterns for a size 8 boot that you're working on. Pay more attention to the heel measurement. When I make a set of boots and I come up to the heel measurement, if it is a, say, 13-inch heel measurement, and I'm working with fairly lightweight leathers, 2 ounce or less, I will subtract 1/4 inch from that heel measurement. If I am working with heavier leathers, between, say, 2 and 4 ounce leathers, I will subtract 1/2 inch from that heel measurement. This just gives you a much better fit in the heel, less heel slip on it. The vamps that we're going to use are also numbered size-wise. There is no measurement on them that you have to be worried about. You're going to use an 8 for an 8, a 9 for a 9. The only thing that you may concern yourself with is if you've done a considerable amount of orthopedic buildup on this, and you're using a very, very wide last, you may want to go to a size 9 vamp on a size 8 last to give yourself a little extra bit of leather to work with. That's the only difference. Another thing I want to point out on the leg patterns is at the bottom, a 1/2 inch up from the bottom on both the front and the back, you'll find a little notch in the side of these. This notched out area here is where we are going to line up the top vamp pattern on your leg pattern. It's also where we're going to line up the counter cover pattern on it. The notches on the bottom of your pattern are size notches. We've already sized them for you. You don't have to worry about that. The only 2 marks on these leg patterns that you want to concern yourself with are the 2 notches on each side of them. I think with that, we will begin to cut out our leg patterns. The particular person we're working on has a 13 1/4 inch heel measurement. I am using a 12 7/8 pattern measurement because I want to take it in just slightly more than 1/4 inch on it, on the heel measurement itself on it. So with that, we'll go ahead and we'll cut our tops out. I'm going to cut one set of tops by hand, the way you're going to be doing it with your paper patterns, and then I will cut the other set with a clicker to give you some idea of the difference in time again. If you're going to use your paper patterns and use a knife and cut consistently, you may want to immediately make heavier patterns, something that will stand knife abrasion on the edge a little bit stronger. Plus, if you make them a little stiffer, they don't have a tendency to buckle under you quite as bad on it. So you might want to make them out of some stiffer material. With that, we'll go ahead and cut out the tops here. I'm using about 2 ounce cowhide. This is half of a hide. When you buy your bigger cowhides, they aren't going to send you a whole hide. You will buy half the cow. The back of the backbone would be right here. You can see part of the leg going out this way. This is the belly of the cow. So we are going to cut with the leg patterns laying in this direction. If you were to put them in this direction, you're going to run the stretch out the top of the boot again. You don't want to do that. So we're going to cut our top patterns this way. I've also discovered saving wear and tear on your bench. If you just take a sheet of plain midsoling and lay down on it, you're not going to end up cutting up your bench nearly as bad. When this gets bad, throw it away and put another piece down. Okay, we'll start cutting out the tops here. I use a breakaway knife, like I was explaining to you on the other side. This is a pattern room knife. It has a little handle that you unscrew and replaceable blades, curved like so. They're carbon steel, they're very flexible and easy to sharpen. If you were objectionable to buying replacement blades for this, this would be an alternative. We'll give you an address where you can order these if you'd like. Again, I say I like these simply because it saves a little time for you. Okay, once again we're going to cut with the stretch going this way, not this way. So we'll lay the pattern out. Try and stay away from the back of the hide, the legs of the hide, the belly of the hide. Don't be afraid of wasting a little bit. It's better than having to buy a pair of boots because you find a flaw in it. I will cut one boot out on the paper patterns, and then I will cut the other boot out on the clicker. I feel you should see the difference in the two, because time is the name of the game in this business. In fact, I've probably gotten a little spoiled in the cutting out of boots, because I don't cut boots out by hand much anymore. I do cut them if they want a taller. If I get an order for an 18-inch boot, I will cut it by hand. Buying the dies for your clicker for one particular height of boot is very expensive, so rather than invest in another set of boot tops, I just cut that one particular one out by hand. And we've got one top. This is the back again. I'd like to mention one more time that this V that you see here directly relates to heel height. Now this would be good from approximately a 2-inch heel on down to, say, a Wellington style heel. If you were going to go to a very extreme heel like a Paul Bond has on it, you're probably going to have to raise this measurement about 1/4 of an inch on it. This will work very well unless you're going to go to some drastic extremes. You're going to cut 2 of everything, 2 backs, 2 fronts. Sometimes that's hard to remember.
You were going to cut that one on the clicker, right?
Yes, I was. I'm sorry. What would I do without you? Okay, we'll cut the front out here. After you get your boot together, we get our tops together, we'll straighten up our edges, and if you want to make any final heel adjustments, if there's a difference in, say, a 1/4 of an inch in the heel adjustment, one foot measured, say, 13 1/4, and the other foot measured 13 inches, make that difference in the boots, and clearly mark your tops, left or right, if you are making a left top or a right top. That difference of a 1/4 inch would make a world of difference in the fit. He's paying for that. Give him the distinction of having a pair of boots made to measure, and that's part of it. A 1/4 inch difference in the heel measurement makes all the difference in the world. Okay, we've got the outside done. We'll cut the lining now for the top. Again, like I say, I use a better quality lining, so I normally don't put a heel slide in 12-inch boots. I do put a heel slide in the taller boots because it does add a stiffener to them so they don't sag around their ankles quite as bad. This is the stiffer pigskin we were talking about earlier. Again, you will put the stretch around to the backbone. I like something with a little bit of a finish to it because it doesn't fuzz up quite as bad as the orthopedic leather that we're going to be using on the lining. It doesn't get quite as fuzzy.
You mean on the vamp?
On the, yeah, vamp lining. Okay. Try and hold your patterns as still as you can. If you go wide, that's fine because we're going to trim it. We're going to square everything up here before we close the boot. It's more critical to stay as accurate as you can on the top and bottom and the sides. There's a back. This is the nice feature about this knife. When it starts getting a little dull, I break a piece off and start over. We'd be stopping right about now so I could sharpen my knife. Okay, there's the front. I'm going through this pretty quick. You won't be quite as fast with this when you start cutting your patterns out. So you might want to pay attention when we get to the clicker because it's going to make you jealous. It really is. Once you have one of those machines, you're going to find it very difficult to go back to cutting them by hand. We're going to need that over there. Okay, we'll cut the vamp out. I'm going to use a bull hide, partially because I like it, and it's a very forgiving hide. It's a lighter color, so we can show you pretty good contrast between the two when we assemble the two. And again, like I was telling you earlier, if you have a particularly wide last that you're working on, you may want to jump a size. It's going to fit together the same here. Your vamp will grow through the toe and back through this side seam area, but not necessarily on the tongue pattern. So if you're a little spooked as to whether you're going to have enough material, go to the next size bigger. It's better to cut a little material off than to not have enough and have to start all over. Okay, we're going to cut again with the stretch running lengthwise on the vamp, this way. The stretch on this animal runs to the backbone again. So we'll cut in this direction. Also, with a breakaway knife, being as thin as they are, you're going to find it a lot easier to get into the tongue pattern here, like so, than you will a bulkier knife. You'll learn to appreciate a thinner bladed knife. On your vamp pattern, I might mention there is a notch right in the toe, right in the front, on all of them. That is the center. The notches off to the side are again size notches. We've already written the size on, so you don't have to pay any attention to that, but you'll be using this center notch quite a bit. Okay, here we go. one vamp. Again, I'll cut the other one with the clicker. I pre-cut my vamp lining material by the hide on them. So I have a set of vamp linings cut out already. These are easy to cut out. It's all straight lines. You might want to take on the vamp lining where this split is and go down and use a small 1/8" circular punch and just punch out this area right here for your first couple attempts at crimping. I'll go over here and show you. Like so. That's just going to allow you a little more stretch without tearing the seam when we put them on a crimping board. Just a little tip to save you a few pieces of material. We have the counter cover left to cut out, and we'll move to the clicker and cut out the other boot. If you use a size 8 vamp, use a size 8 counter cover. If you use a size 9 vamp on a size 8 last, still use a size 9 counter cover. Keep them as a matched set. Again, it's better to trim off some material than is short. If there's any part of the hide that you feel questionable, but still would like to use, this is when you're going to use it for this. You've got a very, very stiff piece of leather going behind it, namely the counter. So this can be made out of a little bit softer material, maybe the belly of the leather if it's decent looking. I try and match grain. If I'm working with a textured leather, I try and match grain a little closer. But this is where you can get away with using up some of your questionable leather because this is not subject to stress. It's not subject to stretching, and you can use a little bit less better quality leather on it. So we'll cut one of these out. Stretch isn't terribly important as to which way. Once you put that heavy counter behind this isn't going to stretch anyway. The heavy counter is going to take up all the stretch, so you don't have to worry as far as direction of stretch on this as much. Pick a fairly heavy leather for your first couple pair of boots, because you're going to be experimenting. You're going to be experimenting when it comes to lasting. You're going to be able to want to take that boot apart and maybe last it again. Maybe you aren't getting it on the last straight and you might want to start over. Pick a leather that's going to let you do that. A good 2-ounce, 3-ounce cowhide is fine. Bull hide is excellent in the sense that you can probably relast this 3 times to get it right. And that would be a good leather for you to pick to start with, simply because you're not going to do it right the first time. If you do, you're very lucky. Okay. We've got the vamp and the counter cover to match. We've got the linings, vamp lining. We have the leg lining, shaft lining, and the outside lining, the outside of your boot shaft. I think there's probably one thing I should state here about these top patterns. If you're making a 12-inch boot, the top shaft pattern isn't 12 inches. It's going to be 10.5 inches. You've got 2 to 2.5 inches in the counter pattern going down here like so. These patterns that we sent you are a little bit taller. They make into about a 13-inch boot. We've just had more call for a little bit taller boot. If you want to shorten the boot up, draw a center line on your pattern from top to bottom. I'll draw one here. like so. And then just simply take your other pattern and slide it down. Make it any height you want. The one thing you have to remember is this boot is going to get smaller as it goes down, so make sure you have enough circumference here to accommodate the calf or whatever measurements you have to deal with up here. In this particular height of boot, you're going to worry about calf measurements. You're going to measure up on their leg when you're measuring, measure the circumference of their calf at the top of your boot, 12 inches, 13 inches. And this is the top measurement that you're going to be working with, the calf measurement. Bottom measurement is the heel measurement. But it's just that simple to make a shorter boot. It's also relatively simple to make a taller boot, just like I've done here. Take your, I'll turn this over so we get a little color clash here. Take the standard pattern pattern that you've got, draw a center line on it again, and simply raise it up if you'd like. There's probably a 16-inch boot there. As long as you keep your heel measurement constant as to what you need for a heel measurement, you're going to be okay. The rest of this is just extension. That's all we're talking about. Heel measurement works very, very well with this set of patterns that we sent you because you can mix the front and backs up to get any heel measurements you need. If you can't come up with a combination close enough and you want to be accurate on your heel measurements, as accurate as a 1/4 of an inch difference like I was speaking, if you have a heel measurement of 13 and one of 13 1/4, make your heel patterns those measurements. After we get your top and top lining assembled and we true up the sides, that's when you're going to make that difference. You'll also have to note that at that time which foot this leg pattern is for. Okay, I think we'll move on to the clicker and show you how fast we can do her there. Okay, we'll use the clicker and give you a fast demonstration here. First thing I'll cut out are the leg patterns, front and back. These are the steel dies which we made your patterns off of. They aren't cheap to make, so don't get into pattern making, having patterns made for you, for your clicker until you know what you want to do. If you care to send our patterns and have a set made, fine. You've already paid for them, that's your privilege. Just make sure that this is what you want and it works for your system of boot making before you invest the money in these, because they aren't cheap. You do get the opportunity of wasting less leather this way because they are hollow in the center. You can see exactly where you're putting them. Much more accurate, less waste. That's one. Okay, just that fast. Much more accurate. The cuts are cleaner. I don't shake at all when I use this. We'll cut the vamps out next. Heel counter. Again, the heel counter can be cut on questionable material. There you go. And there's the counter. you have it. We cut out the other boot in about 1/10 the time. As I stated with the Skyver, if you wanted to buy one thing that was going to cut the time of your boot making down, but remain constant quality-wise, this would be another machine for you to look for. The manual clickers such as this are around. They aren't that expensive. You can pick up used ones for between $500 and $1,000. The drawback to them is they weigh approximately a ton. So freight's going to kill you to get them to you. But consider it. If you're going to get into boot making at all, you're going to want one of these. Okay. We're going to cut the counters out now. This is approximately 11, 12 iron bend. It's about as heavy as I can find. It's a firm bend. There are firm and there are flexible bends. The difference between that is a firm bend, once you case it and make it wet, it has a tendency to set up harder, stay harder. I've taken and cut out one counter, and I've traced the other on here for you. I'll run it through the 5-1 machine. Let's cut her out. Okay, you've got a set of counters. Now you run them through your Skyver, and you run them with the finish side up, flesh side down. We're skiving about 1 inch of the top off here. You'll never be able to set your Skyver to skive it feather thin without taking, say, the point of the counter off, without pulling this edge off here. So I leave them so they're about 1/16 of an inch thick at the end, and then you can do the rest on the finisher. Same with this one. Now I'll move over to the finisher and I'll finish dressing these counters up ready for assembly, so you get some idea of what we're doing. I take the finish off again, rough up the counter. It helps as far as heel slip. The rougher the counter, the less your boot's going to slip in there. And I take the flesh off the back on it. And that's all we do on the counter right now. I do feather out this edge on it. The thicker edge you leave here, the more of an edge they're going to feel when they pull their boot on. So you want to taper this edge out pretty fine, and you want to go down, when you do the tapering, approximately 1 inch, like so. So you want to taper it out from there. I'll do that now and just show you what they look like when we get done. We've taken the glaze off, we've taken the flesh off, we've tapered the top edge of your counter out just about feather thin. from approximately an inch down. These are ready to assemble now. Okay, I think that'll do her.